happy game day, and welcome into another edition of Before the Sandstorm. I'm your host, Kendall Smith, alongside of Wes Mitchell. It's the hotel edition, Wes. We are actually doing this on game day. We are not pre-recording it the day before. I'm in Knoxville, Tennessee. You're in Columbia, South Carolina, but we're getting it done bright and early here. It's like we're literally on college game day.
We are. I'm excited. You're supposed to ask me the questions, but I'm going to ask you, how is Knoxville?
It's great. I love Knoxville. I considered coming to Tennessee, actually, when I was looking at colleges. It is a beautiful town. The people are super nice. But today, hopefully, South Carolina is able to rain on their parade a little bit. We were out last night, and I saw all the tents already set up. They're, ready to go. It's a big-time matchup, obviously, for both teams today. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm excited. But Knoxville's – it's great. It's a little rainy outside right now, so hopefully that clears up by the time we get to game time at noon today, Wes. But both teams 3-2 on the season, South Carolina and Tennessee. How do you think they'll stack up against each other today?
You know, I think on the surface, you look at those 3-2 records, there's not a whole lot of difference between the two records. You know, South Carolina has pretty much lost to the two teams that they were decent-sized underdogs against. You know, you look at Tennessee, they're fresh off a really nice win over Missouri. They really just beat the brakes off of Missouri last week. But they lost to Pitt. They lost to Florida. So the two better teams on their schedule, they've lost to as well. If I'm a South Carolina fan, the thing I'm most worried about, though, as far as the actual matchups, is this Tennessee running game. They've been very, very good. They operate at such a fast tempo. They're going to literally run to the line of scrimmage, snap the ball as fast as they can. When you consider the last couple of weeks, as good as this South Carolina defense has been overall, Troy had some success running the football. Kentucky had success. Obviously, Georgia had some success. So, to me, that's a major concern. If I'm, looking at this matchup, that's the thing that just, jumps completely off the page to me.
So we've seen flashes of this Tennessee team looking really, really good, like last week in their 62-24 victory over Missouri. We've seen them look not so good, losing to Pittsburgh earlier this season. So what version of that Tennessee team do you think will come out today in Knoxville?
You know, I've been doing some reading on Missouri after what Tennessee did to that Missouri defense, and the Missouri defense is struggling right now, to say the least. So some of what we saw last week was a result of what was on the other side of Tennessee. And this is a Missouri defense that has a former NFL coach playing against a very college-style offense that Josh Heupel runs at Tennessee. Now, that said, I think you have to give Tennessee a ton of credit for actually going out there and executing. The South Carolina team hasn't come close to scoring 62 points this year. So I think give them all the credit in the world there. I'm sure their confidence is sky high. I'm sure that they're especially on the offensive side, they're feeling really, really good about where things are right now. So to me, I think this Tennessee team probably comes in, and it's maybe not the best time to play them if you're South Carolina, because I don't think they're quite as good as they looked last week by any means. But I do think they're probably looking at the film saying there's a lot to build off of here. And if you're South Carolina, I feel like you don't want them to get off to a fast start. South Carolina needs for the fast start to be on their sideline, because this needs to kind of be a little bit more low-scoring, slower-paced game than Tennessee is trying to play.
Well, I actually talked to a writer who was on the Tennessee beat last night, and he said that he used to be able to do play-by-play when Tennessee was on offense, and he can't even do that anymore because they're so quick, they're so speedy. So for South Carolina's defense, what do they need to do to stay locked in and keep up with that up-tempo Tennessee offense?
Yeah, there was a play I was watching Missouri versus Tennessee, and it was 3rd and 1, and Tennessee literally snapped the ball with 35 seconds left on a 40-second play clock. It was it's just warp speed. So to me, for South Carolina, a lot of what they have to do today has already been decided during this week of practice. How well did they do this week in practice at just getting lined up, getting plays in fast enough, and processing what you're supposed to be doing, right? It's not just physically getting lined up. It's mentally processing, what am I supposed to do on this play, and being ready for Tennessee to snap the ball. So some of that is already kind of taking place. But for me today, it's just as much about this offense as it is this defense. Shane Beamer mentioned it. Clayton White mentioned it. Marcus Satterfield mentioned it. I think the offense has to basically give an assist to the defense. Stay on the field, make some first downs, grind out some drives, let them rest, South Carolina doesn't have a ton of depth at linebacker on defense. If they're on the field all day and getting worn down, you watch this Tennessee offense, they throw these little quick screens to the left, quick screens to the right. Every time you just throw that little quick pass, it seems like a simple thing to the receiver. South Carolina's linebackers, they start in the middle, right? They run all the way to the left. Next play, they throw it to the right. They have to run all the way to the right. So they're literally going to be yo-yoing South Carolina's linebackers back and forth all day and then trying to run the ball right in their faces. So to me, get the assist from the offense, keep the Tennessee offense on the sideline. And to me, the Gamecock offense needs to have their best day of the year, not even necessarily in putting up like 50 points, but just staying on the field, making first downs, not shooting themselves in the foot, which we've seen a lot of, and executing.
And South Carolina 3-2 on the season. You see when you look at the schedule for the rest of the year, maybe a couple of winnable games for the Gamecocks. Today's game, a really, really big one, Wes. And I know that we've talked about it over the last few weeks. It seems to be the question that repeats itself. But do you think today's game is make or break for South Carolina in terms of them wanting to potentially make a bowl game at the end of the season?
Well, as you know, we don't use must win around here.
Well, I said make or break. So I feel like that's better.
I feel like that's your way of getting around the must-win moratorium. But, I think, Kendall, this is another massive opportunity is how I look at it. If you beat Tennessee, Beer was asked the question this week. This is year one for him, obviously. It's year one for Josh Heupel, obviously. There are some natural comparisons that are going to take place between the two programs. So you get a really nice win, not only on the schedule, you put yourself in a position to possibly get bowl eligible. Maybe you even would project them to get bowl eligible if they win today. But also, it'd be a really nice win on the recruiting trail as far as being able to point to, hey, we're a step ahead of those guys. And these two teams have traditionally, at least recent tradition, been very, very tight. Most of the games are close. I think the teams are 8-8 against each other in the last 16. So that just goes to tell you that's not a short time window. Like, it's almost 20 years. So I think you look at it, a win for Shane Beamer. I'm not saying a loss is make or break, but a win for Shane Beamer and those guys would be absolutely massive.
You said almost 20 years, and I'm like, that's almost how long I've been alive. So pretty crazy.
I was going to say that, and I was like, maybe I won't go there with her.
It's okay. You know what? Neck and neck for basically my entire existence on this earth. But Wes,
literally.
Game prediction for today's matchup between South Carolina and Tennessee.
These are all already posted, by the way, on our game day guide on GamecockCentral.com. The Gamecock fans are not going to like the Gamecock Central staff this week. Lots of Tennessee predictions. I'm going that direction as well. Guys, until we see this offense go match up, go toe-to-toe with a Tennessee offense like South Carolina will see today on the other side, cannot in good conscience predict a South Carolina win. I think I have Tennessee 31, South Carolina 20, which is a popular pick apparently. Most of the picks are very close. I will say this, if South Carolina wins, Michael Sauls will be the only one to have called it.
Michael Sauls is going to be the fan favorite today in terms of the GC staff. I also have Tennessee winning 31-21, but consider it reverse psychology because every time Wes and I do pick South Carolina to win, they lose. So we're trying to do South Carolina a favor today. We're playing a little bit of a mind game, like switching it up.
That's what we're doing.
So if they win, you can thank us, shoot us a DM, a tweet, let us know how grateful you are that we played this reverse psychology game. But Wes, that's going to do it for today's edition of Before the Sandstorm. A great time here in the hotel room in Knoxville, Tennessee.
Beautiful lighting in the morning.
Yeah, that's why we love a noon game. We get up nice and early, ready to go, but at least the game ends at a decent hour. You can get home and watch more college football at the end of the night. But we appreciate you joining us. Everyone follow us on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram at Gamecock Central. We will have so many updates throughout the day from Knoxville, Tennessee, ahead of South Carolina's matchup versus the Tennessee Volunteers. But Wes, we'll see you next week on Before the Sandstorm, and have a great game day, everybody.